Well, I'm with David Icke in your studio, in Iconic Studio.
Yep.
So I appreciate you being here in your own studio for having me.
No problem.
I was talking with Gareth, and we had a talk on his show just before this, and it was fortuitous. I was supposed to be here in October, and I had to cancel. But today, of all days, is the anniversary. 23 years ago was the beginning of the Iraq War. And so I was 23 years old, and that was my third foreign war. And I'd just gotten home from Afghanistan, and of course the lead up to all that. It was March 18th. That's when we gave the deadline for Saddam to, get out of Iraq, give up power, all the rest of that. And so it's 23 years on, David. I've learned a lot, and I have some questions for you about that. When you look at what's going on today, we have the new repackaged neocon experiment with Iran. But aside from Zionism, aside from the military-industrial complex, is there another reason that we are continually drawn back to this region, in your opinion?
Well, I think the region is very significant energetically. There's a whole emerging area of scientific research which goes under the name of the electric universe. And they point out, with enormous evidence, by the way, that the universe is a electrical system, electromagnetic system. And if you could see the universe on another level, because we can only see a tiny, tiny band of frequency called visible light, you would see that the stars, the nodes, are nodes, like planets and stars, are nodes of this electrical system. Now, this starts to explain the whole idea and concept of ley lines and meridian lines on Earth, because this meridian line network is an expression of that universal network and how it works. And I learned a long time ago, 30 odd years ago, that where these lines cross creates a vortex. Where enormous numbers of lines cross creates a massive vortex. And as the years have gone on, I've realized that what these vortexes do is they thin out, because in the way they operate, they thin out the dimensional differences between this dimension and another dimension known as the astral dimension. And it's in these vortex areas that the Satanists do their rituals. And I've talked to Satanists all over the world over the last 3.5 decades, and they describe how this vortex allows entities in this astral dimension, entities that I say are actually behind human events, to come into the major rituals and manifest. And so when I look at the obsession with the Middle East, these things come to mind immediately. Places like Jerusalem and other places in the Middle East are, I would say, massive vortexes on this ley line system. And, the system goes out electrically and electromagnetically. In fact, I did a 2-part series for Iconic called Albion, Heart of the World, which is all about the ley line system, because Britain is a really powerful center of this ley line system, which starts to explain why these tiny frickin' islands, I mean tiny, have had such an impact on the world. Because if you can focus and affect in terms of frequency, in terms of information, these key areas of the global ley line system, it impacts upon the very field of energy information that we're interacting with. It's like if you can impact, download information to the internet, then you're affecting the entire internet basically in how it interacts with the user. And it's the same with this ley line system. If you can dictate its frequency, you can dictate the information that's flowing through it, you can impact upon human perception. And these are the deep, deep levels of knowledge that are kept from us. But they're not kept from what I call the global cult, which is this global network of secret societies with an interlocking leadership that is driving human events. It's driving events in human society. It's driving the wars. It's driving the deprivation. It's driving all these things we'd rather not be happening. And what they do is, within the enclosed degree system, if you like, of the secret society network, the global cult, as I call it, advanced information, including all the stuff that I'm talking about now, and then some, are passed on through the generations of these initiates. Not to Bill and Joe down the lodge, but to the inner core. And this same network, this global cult, the major players like your Rockefellers and your Rothschilds and all these people, they have been responsible for creating the sources of information that the public get their perceptions from. So like the Rockefellers, massively centrally involved in the public education system in America. Now Bill Gates is up to his neck in it as well, who's a Rockefeller gopher. So they own the media. Of course, the media now are getting smaller and smaller in terms of its ownership. But they don't just own the media. They've created most of it through the years. And so on one side, you've got this advanced knowledge being passed on through the generations of global cult initiates. And on this side, you've got the global population being told only what they need to hear so they can serve this without having any idea even that this exists. And this is this whole ley line system, electrical universe. I mean, the brain, how does the brain process information? It does it electrically, electromagnetically. I'm just reading a book called The Electromagnetic Brain, funnily enough. And so the brain is interacting with this electrical system. It's all one unit. And the whole foundation of it, from this point of view, this cult point of view, is to control human perception. The whole deal is based on that. Controlling human perception, which controls human behavior. And censorship is about censoring other explanations of events and reality, so that basically the vast majority of the population only hear what the cult, through its various political media corporation gophers, puts out. They only hear that. And so they're forming their perceptions from a fraction of the information that is possible. That's what censorship is about. That's why during COVID, you had, or what's called COVID, you had massive censorship of anything that was challenging the World Health Organization narrative, because they wanted people only to believe that and not see there were other explanations. Who created the World Health Organization? The Rockefellers in 1948. So it all connects in the end. But you know, we can look at the Trumps and the Harrises and the Starmers, the Farages and all these people, and we can think that's the conspiracy. It's not. It's not. That's the big mistake I would suggest that people make. That's a way it plays out. Where it's coming from is actually another dimension of reality, and it's served in this human dimension by this global cult. And the reason so many, as I realized very early on in the 1990s when I started investigating this, and now, of course, with the Epstein files and everything else, it's now coming out more and more. But that's why these major cultists in this global cult, that's why they do satanic rituals and ritual sacrifices. They're doing it to these entities in this other dimension. And again, I've talked to Satanists around the world, many who observed it against their will, others who'd seen the light and come out of it. And they tell you that's what they're doing. They're doing sacrifices as a gift to the gods, and we can get into why it's a gift.
Well, as I was telling Gareth as we spoke earlier, I was part of the tail end of the invasion of Iraq, and we're talking about energy.
Yeah.
And when we crossed over from the border of Kuwait into Iraq, I felt it. And maybe I'm more sensitive to that. This was 23 years ago, but I'll never forget that I turned to my driver and I said, "This is a really bad idea." And it was the tail end of the invasion, which was a consequence of, you wrote The Trigger. You wrote, which is an achievement, by the way. There's nothing like it. And I've referenced it many times on my shows and recommended it. If you really want to unpack and understand what 9/11 represents, that's the book to go to. And so it made me think, to ask you when I was on my way up this morning, there's so many things that lead up to 9/11, of course, and the consequences of that, the trigger itself, and the Iraq War, and we're even seeing that play out today. But you mentioned the big rituals and the behind the scenes, even the energetic fields. There's an event that I always go back to, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. It's September 11th, 1990, exactly 11 years to the day, almost to the minute of the announcement of what had happened on 9/11, which was George H.W. Bush going before a joint session of Congress and invoking the New World Order three times.
Remember it.
It's exactly 11 years. And so I don't think things like that are accidents. It's almost like it's laying a spell. It's a groundwork of what's to come.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah. Well, I could talk about that for ages. I don't know how long you've got, but I really could.
Much time as you want.
Because I've always worked on the principle since I had my head blown off and in 1990 and started to see the world completely differently. I've always worked on the principle that whatever I know, there's always more to know. So what I see in so much of the alternative media, or what's called the alternative media, is they kind of open their minds from the universal prison cell, if you like, and then they stop. And they stop at politics, they stop at finance, they stop at corporations, Silicon Valley and all that. But you don't stop, because if we have the humility, first of all, if we realize that we can only see a tiny, it is a smear even of the electromagnetic spectrum, never mind the reality we're looking at. And therefore, it needs humility to realize that whatever we know or think we know, there's always more to know. That's the one thing above anything that you cannot challenge. There's always more to know. And so what I've been doing over the years is, when I started in the early 90s uncovering this global cult and how it operated and the structure of it, very simple structure actually, behind all the apparent complexity. Then my next question was, okay, so when did it start? And then you go back, or what we call back. I mean, it's all an illusion. To pick it up in the ancient world, this cult and how it's come to present day, expanding its reach until it's now global. And then you go, well, so people have been coming into this cult. They've served it, and which is basically its foundation is the constant centralization of power. And then they've died, and then others have come in and they've served it and they've died. So there has to be some coordinating force that spans this period that's actually orchestrating it. And then that's when you start to go into the non-human realm and into another dimension of reality, which is known as the astral dimension. People look through their eyes and they think that all that's in the space that they're looking at, they can see. You say, well, can you see everything in the space you're looking at? They go, yeah. But they don't. They see this tiny band of frequency, visible light, which is why I'm looking at a wall, I'm looking at you and a table and cameras, etc., and lights. And in between all those forms, I'm seeing empty space. It's not empty space. It's full of energy. Every dimension in infinite reality exists in the same space we're sitting in. But it appears empty space to us because these forms are all vibrating within the frequency band of visible light. So we see them. The space in between is vibrating beyond the limits of visible light, so it seems to be empty space to us. It's not. So from that perspective alone, you look at it and you go, I think there's always more to know, right? So I went through this whole kind of concept of the other dimensional entities, and then it started to occur to me that this whole reality is actually a simulation. It's using the term of the movies, it's a matrix. It's a fake reality, and we can get into how it works. It's quite simple the way the structure of how we interact with it, and you have this matrix, fake reality, which is designed for many things, but more than anything, it's designed to control and hijack our perception of reality. So here we are, we're talking about Trump, and we should. We're talking about Trump, and we're talking about politics, and we're talking about corporate things and media and all this. But that's the play out level. And they're quite happy if you just focus on that and nothing else, because that's what they don't want you to know. So the very foundation of the conspiracy to enslave humanity is not even Donald Trump. It's the fact that we are living and experiencing a reality that is absolutely nothing like the one we think we're experiencing. So when people talk about heaven, they look up, don't they? They go, I wonder if I'll go to heaven. I wonder what heaven's like. But actually, it's not like that. It's exactly the same in principle as radio stations, television stations. They share the same space, but they're on completely different wavelengths. So unless they're very close on the dial, they don't interfere with each other. So this astral dimension, where these entities exist that are manipulating human society through this cult, are in this room. They're everywhere in terms of the astral dimension, but we're not aware of it because we are on a different wavelength. So you have that level that's manipulating through this global cult. Okay, so the next question, we can get into how the matrix works. Like I say, it's relatively simple to explain. But the next question after that, obviously, is why the hell would anyone do it? Why would they create a fake reality to enslave perception? What's the point, mate? Well, there is a point. And what it is that this other dimensional force which takes the form of entities, yes, but ultimately it's a state of consciousness through which these entities are expressions. It's feeding off human energy. And I can't, describe a better scene to symbolize it than Morpheus in the Matrix holding up the battery, who said, the Matrix is a computer-generated dream world designed or built to turn humans into this, a battery, because they're feeding off our energy. Now, this is the point, mate, which will really come round to your point about wars and why we continually have them. It's a particular type of energy. This if you like, consciousness that is driving all this from this astral dimension. It's described in many, many ancient cultures. It's described in religious beliefs and what have you. Like this consciousness is distorted, it's chaotic, it's schismatic, it's a real mess, right? And but it has a power that's based on keeping what's happening from the target population. So if I know infinitely more about what's happening than you do, I gotcha. So that's the dynamic between humans and this consciousness, and it seeks, therefore, to use humans as its energetic sustenance. So, therefore, it wants humanity to produce chaotic, schismatic, upheaval consciousness energy that it can absorb, because it can't absorb the balanced energy of joy, of love, of harmony, of balance. Not interested in that. So suddenly you start to get the reason why throughout what we call human history, first of all, the few have always controlled the many, but also it's always been overwhelmingly chaotic and it's upheaval and war and deprivation and stuff like that, especially in recent centuries. And so it has no interest in a world of love, a world of joy, a world of harmony and peace, because it can't absorb that. It wants the energy of fear, of regret, of hatred, of war, of conflict in all its forms, of resentment, of regret, anxiety, all these things, because that gives off the energy that it can absorb and is empowered by. And, you know, this is mainstream science. Every time we think and every time we feel an emotion, we are generating a frequency. I mean, this is the frequency that we call vibes. Oh, I got bad vibes from him. What do you mean you got bad vibes from him? He seemed like a nice chap. He did. No, I got bad vibes, mate. That's because you can't hide the vibration they're giving off, but they can hide who they are from you through their facial features and their bonhomie. So we're giving off this energy all the time, and joy and love is a high, fast frequency, a very balanced frequency. And these other low vibrational frequencies surrounding the base frequency of fear is a very low, slow, chaotic frequency. I mean, you've experienced the madness of war. Well, that's just an expression of the energy that is actually running this show. And so the more wars, conflict, deprivation, despair, fear that you can generate, the more that energy is produced by the massive humanity. I mean, think of the First World War, the Second World War, Gaza since October the 7th, Iran and elsewhere now. the energy, what has been given the name loosh, this low vibrational energy, the energy that those things are giving off. And so you have this global cult, which is serving the agenda of that other dimensional force. That's, like I say, that's why you have these satanic ritual interactions. And the role of this global cult within our reality is to generate, manipulate events that will trigger that low vibrational energy. And that's why we have had constant wars, constant conflict, deprivation, suffering, worry, fear, anxiety. That's why it's manipulated. It doesn't have to be like that, but it's made to be like that by this global cult because of what it generates in terms of energy. So you think of the COVID thing. Look at all the fear that generated alone, never mind everything else.
It's interesting you mentioned the Matrix. I wrote in my notes on the way up here. I was thinking of, there's a scene where Agent Smith, I believe he's talking to Morpheus, and he says, now look out the window. This is the height of your civilization. And they're basing this off of 1999. And of course, Neo's passport expires on September 11th, 2001 in the movie. Do you think that dialogue has a point as you look back on your life and everything you've experienced? Was the turn of the last century, was that a high water mark for civilization, seeing how that everything past that since the trigger, since 2001, has been a constant energy harvest and fear and uncertainty and everything that we built before there? It's like if you're going to harvest something, you have to plant the seed, you have to cultivate it first. It's like we were cultivated, and then now they're just harvesting. Yeah, well, I think if you look back, through history, you look back before 2001, you hit the Second World War, the Great Depression, the First World War, and on it goes. But so I think it's always been happening. But what's happening now is it's being harnessed in a way that in known human history hasn't happened before. It's a real it's a real loosh harvest that's going on now, and it's leading somewhere. You see, it's leading somewhere because you cannot divorce what is happening in Iran and what has happened in Gaza and what has happened in these wars, etc. You cannot divorce that from the AI agenda, right? Because if we go more deeply into the nature of who we are and how we interact with the so-called matrix, we, the I, the real I, the eternal I, is a state of consciousness. It's a state of awareness. It's a state of being aware. It doesn't have in its base form, it doesn't have a form, it doesn't have a body, it's just awareness. That's who we are, ultimately. But what has happened in this matrix is that aspects of awareness have become entrapped in this fake reality. And they've become entrapped in terms of their perception. So if you say to someone, who are you? Nice to meet you. Who are you? They won't say, I'm an expression of all that is, has been, and ever can be, having a brief human experience. They'll tell you their name, their location, their place of birth, whatever. They will self-identify with the labels of a human life. Now, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this religion, this race, that race. When in fact, that's an experience. They are experiences that our consciousness is having. What this whole trickery is about is to get us to believe that what we're experiencing is who we are. So you're basically given two ways of seeing in the mainstream, two ways of seeing the I. Either we're a cosmic accident,
who started off in some kind of primordial soup, and suddenly there was a big bang, and everything was created, including Ethel on the checkout and Bill on the bus and all that stuff. And yeah, that makes sense. Or the other alternative, which they're quite happy with, is that there is this God, which I say is the fake God. I say that the real infinite awareness consciousness is beyond this matrix, and people have been manipulated to confuse the two. This God, first of all, wants you to bow down to him. And wants you to worship him. Now, any state of balance does not want that. A state of imbalance that wants to be worshipped and what have you, and worship is all part of this energy trawling as well, then that's what wants to be worshipped. And the dynamic between humans and this God, which I say is a fake God, and I'm not just talking about Christianity, I'm talking about Islam, I'm talking about Hindu, I'm talking about all of them. The dynamic is God up there, always watching you. You must do what God wants, otherwise you're going to be stoking the fires of hell for the rest of all eternity. And if you were... I just ask people, I'm not, believe what you like. It's none of my business as long as you don't impose it on anyone else. But if you were a control freak consciousness, what would you want your target population to, how would you want them to perceive you for what you are? You would want them to be God-fearing. When I was a little kid and I first heard that, I'm a God-fearing Christian, I thought, what are you frightened of this God for? Well, I can't understand. But it's all, again, fear. And so there's this fake choice between cosmic accident and just subordinate to some judgmental God. And of course, the God of the Old Testament seems very different to me to much of the God of the New Testament. So, excuse me, well, no, we put them in the same book, right? And both books are the Word of God, and therefore you've got to explain these contradictions away to yourself. And in doing so, you disappear up your own backside trying to do it, because it's not possible to do it, because it's obviously that you're not talking about the same version of God. Anyway, so you are in a situation where what they want to keep from us, this is the crucial bit, is the fact that we are awareness, a state of being aware. Now, how they keep that from us and how we interact with the matrix is the same thing, actually, and you're looking at it. I've been calling the human body since the 1990s a biological computer, because that's what it is. It's a software program, and it's an extraordinarily advanced software program, because, we are told to perceive that the biological is natural and the technological is human-made. Okay. But how do we know that? How do we know the biological is natural? The only way we can know is if we have something that is unquestionably natural to compare it with. We don't have that. We have the biological, it's natural. Well, no, well, actually, show me something that's absolutely unquestionably natural and compare it, and then you might be onto something. But you don't have that. And when I've been researching this cult and its players over these last 36 years, they don't perceive the biological to be natural. They perceive it to be a form of very advanced technology. So if you look at the body, what I'm saying is the body is the equivalent of a headset in a virtual reality game. Because if you watch these compilations on the internet, these video compilations. Someone is in a room like this, in what they perceive to be normal reality. They put a headset on and immediately they're somewhere else. Their whole perception of reality has been completely hijacked by this headset. And if you then add the gloves and the audio and the more sophisticated ones, it completely takes them over. I've been on a speaking tour recently, and I used a clip which included this woman who's put a headset on and she's screaming, and someone next to her, a dad or somebody, holds her arm and says, no, it's okay, you're in a room, it's a game. No, she's completely gone. Now, imagine, ladies and gentlemen, that when consciousness enters the body in the womb, say, the body is forming, and then the body is born and then grows through what we call life to the cemetery. That you can't take your headset off short of dying, right? And this is why when you look at these near-death experience accounts, and I've read and watched hundreds and hundreds of them, they talk about when the body dies, what does the body do when it dies? It ceases to decode the matrix, as I'll come to in a sec. And it releases consciousness into what is described by these near-death experiences as a completely different reality with a completely different law of physics. Exactly right. So all the way through our lives, we are experiencing this reality through a body computer that is decoding the matrix into the reality that we think we're experiencing. So what I've found is that this technological explosion of computerization, first of all, which didn't exist when I was growing up, and AI and the digital stuff, is mimicking technologically the very way that we interact with the matrix and the way that we experience reality. So if I said to people, in this room is a field of radiation and it's encoded with a complete global reality. And if you get a piece of kit called a computer and you log into it, the computer will decode part of that Wi-Fi field into a completely different form on the screen that you're experiencing. If I said that to people who knew nothing about computers, they'd say, "You're mad, mate. You're mad. Where is it? I can't see it. What's this field?" But if you said the same thing now to people, they'd go, "Oh, yeah, everyone knows that, mate. Yeah, Wi-Fi computers, yeah, everyone knows that, yeah." The only difference between "you're mad, mate" and "everyone knows that" is knowledge. That's all it is. So if you can censor and keep from people knowledge, you're going to fundamentally limit their sense of reality, their sense of the possible. So what I've just described, where the computer, the desktop, whatever, logs into the Wi-Fi field of the internet and puts it on the screen in a completely different form. That's exactly the way that we are creating the decoded matrix that we think we're experiencing. So the matrix is information. It's information encoded in frequency, and it's an interactive. So it's affecting us massively, it's affecting our sense of reality. But as you awaken out of this body computer reality into greater consciousness, the true I, you start to put a different perception of reality into the matrix field. and it becomes available to anyone else who will who can tap into that frequency that you're putting out. And so it's interactive. And what this consciousness, this cult that serves it wants, is to keep us only in what I call body consciousness and out of expanded awareness into the true I, consciousness. So how does this work, this biological computer? First of all, if I said to people that it's a biological computer and it's a software program, okay, they'd say, you know, a lot of people anyway, would say, you're crazy, mate, you're mad. And I say, okay, when's the last time you remember breathing? When's the last time you thought about breathing? The only time you thought about breathing is when you were out of breath. You know, and you don't stop and say, hold on a minute, just quiet a minute, I've just got to focus because I've just eaten something. I've just got to focus so I can digest it. No. The body is performing functions of endless varieties, second by second, without the conscious mind of humans being in any way aware of it. You go into a room, you know, maybe a cold room, it will compensate. You go into a hot room, it will compensate. All these things are happening in fantastic detail, second by second. Who's doing that? Well, the program is doing that. It's what it's designed to do. And then, this is the big point, is it so much of a stretch, therefore, to think that there's also a psychological program running through the body computer? And you can prove there is, because, again, this is right up my street, there is an area of the brain, which is this part here, which is where the probe went in the Matrix movies, that is called the reptilian brain, or the R complex. And from that reptilian brain is generated the survival, the survival response. So fight or flight is coming from the reptilian brain. You're looking at the reptilian brain is constantly scanning the environment, looking for threats to survival, not just physical survival, but survival of a relationship, survival of a job, survival of paying the rent at the end of the month. It constantly in that survival mode. Road rage is the reptilian brain. And so there are psychological programs running through the body. And this kind of intrigued me, because before I started getting banned from loads of countries, I traveled the world a lot. You know, I've been to almost, well, it must be 60 odd countries in the last 36 years or so. And what you realize in the different cultures and the different, you know, religions, different environments, is that humans basically react the same. They you know, they may have different, you know, beliefs or whatever, but their reactions are invariably the same. This is the computer at work. And so what they want is for this, what I call body program, to dominate and dictate our perceptions of reality and our reactions, which produce loosh, like fight or flight and all this. And so what they've had to do up to this point is have this cult control information so that, you know, this very narrow band of what's perceived as normal, dominated by orthodox science, etc., keeps you in body program perceptual mode. If you go outside the body program, you are either you know, kind of going into the occult, or you're in terms of the orthodox science religion, you are dabbling in the paranormal, or you're a pseudo-scientist or whatever. So there's a real effort within society to hold you in this very narrow band of what's perceived as normal. And what they've had to do is manipulate events and control information through censorship to keep you in the body program so you don't go beyond it and tap into consciousness. So what they're trying to do now, this is what this AI thing is all about, is to not have to do that anymore, but to so connect the human brain, body, computer to artificial intelligence that you would never even ask the question, who am I? What is this place? Who's running this world? To what end? So you cease to think as, if you like, a human, and you certainly cease to think as consciousness, and you think what AI tells you to think. That's the whole idea. And if you look at this guy, Ray Kurzweil, this Google executive, who is often praised by Bill Gates, that's how bad he is. He's one of the numero uno people, Ray Kurzweil, of the AI future. And he said a few years ago now that by 2030, the human brain would be connected via AI to the cloud. And from that connection onwards, AI would do more and more of human thinking until human thinking is negligible. He means deleted. And from that moment, we become, AI does our thinking for us. It does our emotional responses for us. That's the idea. And if you want louche on tap, then if you control the thinking, emotional state of humans, well, there you go. Press the button, mate, will you? Hey, I'm hungry. Oh, thank you. Right. And this is where, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy and far out, but it's actually what's happening. And so what you have currently with Donald Trump, who I've been calling out as a cult gopher since 2016 when he came on the political scene, he's doing two things, and he's been put in there to do two things. Because he's not very bright, I mean, you look at politicians worldwide, the ones in power are not very bright, but they're very, very malleable. It's like they used to say about Margaret Thatcher, people on the inside. She's dead easy to manipulate, the Iron Lady, because all you have to do is get her to think it's her idea, right? And then she'll go, oh, that idea you had, Margaret, was outstanding. Oh, do you think so? What idea was that? Well, when you said that, yeah, okay. And so when you've got a bombastic kind of narcissistic, very, very insecure, childlike person like Donald Trump, it's a doddle to manipulate. And he's been put in there for two reasons. One, to trash the old system and to facilitate the introduction and imposition of the new system based on AI, digital, and Silicon Valley's oligarch bros. And he's doing both of them because I was saying during the 2024 campaign, this is what he's put in there to do. I got so much abuse for it, for criticizing the savior. But 2 days after the inauguration, he's got Larry Ellison and Sam Altman in the Oval Office announcing this up to $500 billion data center, AI data center program. It's Stargate, they called it. And he's gone on facilitating, because that's why in this big, beautiful bill, he was trying to say to states, you can't regulate AI for 10 years, by which time it will all be in place. It's because he is facilitating this AI dystopia, while at the same time he's destroying the system. Now, what's happening with that is that the MAGA people that still exist, who haven't seen the light yet, They are saying that what he's doing is bringing down the globalists. He's bringing down the manipulators of human society. No, he's not. He's trashing their old system. In the 1990s, I coined this phrase, problem, reaction, solution, and another one, which I call the totalitarian tiptoe. And problem, reaction, solution is create the problem, blame someone else for it, get the reaction, do something, and then offer the solutions to the problems you've covertly created, which is advancing the agenda to more and more centralization of power and human control. But the totalitarian tiptoe comes into this what I'm talking about now. That is, you start at A and you're going to Z, and you know you're going to Z from here, from the start. But you know if you go too quickly and too fast, then people might look up from the game show and go, what's going on? What's going on? So you go as fast as you can, but not so fast that you alert too many people, although, of course, it's getting quicker and quicker now. And so how that plays out is a sequence of eras, a sequence of different eras of the way human society works. And the big theme of these eras is, in each era, you give more and more power to fewer and fewer people, right? This is clearly what's happening. We started in tribes, and the tribes made decisions about what happened to the tribe. Then we bring lots of tribes together in what we call nations. In Europe now, the nations are brought together under the European Union. You've got the BRICS amalgamation of countries, etc. And it's what that is the constant centralization of power. And the more you concentrate power, the more power the few have over more and more and more and more of the world population. So if we pick it up in before the First World War, you had the world in a certain state. Then you start a war, and at the end of the war, the world is in a completely different state. And you had the Versailles so-called peace agreement, dominated by the House of Rothschild, by the way, and that rewrote the much of the world and rewrote borders, etc. You then go out of that pretty much via the 1920s into the Great Depression of the 1930s. That started doing for the previous economic system. And you're straight into World War II. And at the end of World War II, the world is completely frickin' different to how it was before the First World War. And at the end of the Second World War, you had the Bretton Woods Agreement, you had the creation of the IMF, the World Bank, and all these centralized bodies. You had the World Health Organization in 1948. And these globally centralized bodies. The world is in a completely different state. Now, I was born in 1952, 7 years after the Second World War. And pretty much from when I was born to very recently, in fact, almost current times, that system, that post-war system has been in place. People call it the international law and the world order of trying to stop wars and stop the world wars happening again and all that stuff. And you've had an economic system which spans this period as well. But if you have a status quo and it ain't moving, you cannot bring in the next status quo. Because all these sequences, they're all cult-generated sequences. They're just heading towards Z. So Trump's been brought in to trash this system. I keep, hearing politicians and people say the old world order's being dismantled. And I remember Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, saying at a World Economic Forum meeting in was it February, that the world order has been ruptured but we should encompass it. Yes, I know Mark, who's kind of cult-owned to his DNA, former head of the Canadian Central Bank, the Bank of England, and absolutely up to his neck in the cult agenda, because Trump's there to trash that order, and at the same time, in America and the West, facilitate the introduction of the AI control system and AI human fusion, which is the big goal that they've had all along. And what you have in China is the same system being introduced, and in Russia and these other places. And so what they've done, because it's all about perceptual manipulation, they've turned it into a sporting event. So Trump and the Trump regime are saying, we must beat China to the AI, in the AI race. We must be the AI winner and stop China winning. And so it's, let's do that. We can't let China do it. No. So what's the common theme, Don, between you wanting to beat China and China wanting to beat you, and Russia coming in and all these others, European Union? What's the common denominator? AI dystopia comes in globally, right? Oh, never thought of that. Oh, no. But that's exactly what's happening. And so when you go to that level, this other dimensional level, and you come down to the inner circle of this global cult, from that level of the manipulation, political parties all look the same, religions all look the same, all these apparent different media organizations all look the same, because in the end they're all answerable to this level. Most of them will not even know that, but they're all being manipulated from this upper level, and therefore you have the perfect situation for control by the few of the many, and this is the situation. Mathematically, it should be impossible. 8 billion people, so we're told, and the number of people in full knowledge who are manipulating and directing the direction of the 8 billion is tiny by comparison, tiny. How do you do that? How do you control that? Well, first of all, you've got to get your target population broken up. And you break them up into different rigid, unquestioning belief systems. These are called left in politics, right in politics, even center in politics. They're called Christianity or Islam or Hinduism or Judaism and all of it. And in the end, all these different belief systems, in terms of their organization and origin, are coming from this level of manipulation. They think that they're not. They think they're all individual. So you have a situation, therefore, where you've broken up your target population into rigid belief systems, and now you have the perfect situation for the essential element of the control of the few of the many, and that's divide and rule. Because you've got endless different belief systems and organizations promoting the belief systems to play off against each other in divide and rule. So currently we have Judaism and Christianity attacking Islam in Iran, and is Iran responding back. But you see it everywhere. And you see another thing where not only do they create religions, they then break them up. Right. So in Islam, you've got Sunni against Shia. In Christianity, you've got Roman Catholicism against Protestantism and endless others. And so you make them fight among each other as well. So you have this situation where you've broken all these people up into rigid belief systems, and then you play them off against each other. But there's another aspect to this. You know, my father used to talk about bricks and mortar religion, religions that work through synagogues and mosques and churches and temples and stuff. But religion is not just bricks and mortar, it's a mentality. It's a mentality that says, I believe this rigidly and unquestioningly, and anyone that doesn't believe it must therefore be wrong, and I'm not going beyond the walls of the story that I've been told to believe in and I have chosen to believe in, or I think I've chosen to believe in. And in that way, orthodox science and religion are the same mentality, and yet orthodox science dismisses religion. It's talk about playing with the mind. So why is that? Why is orthodox science the same as religion in the way it plays out and the way it operates? For this reason. We are sitting in an infinite, multi-dimensional field of awareness, creation, knowledge, insight. If we open our minds from the myopia we're told to believe in, the norms, we start to tap in to that expanded awareness. Not just Buddha sitting under a tree. Anyone can do it. It's our natural state. It's not about almost learning anything new. It's about removing all the layers, like onion skins, of programming, so that we can tap into who we were all along. So as you expand your awareness, you're going deeper and deeper and deeper into this field until you reach the point where, in terms of frequency, you are leaving the matrix. So the matrix is no longer feeding your reality, or is no longer the only source of reality. Now you're tapping into something that's giving you the panorama. Suddenly you can see how the dots connect where you couldn't before. Because you were looking at a dot, now you're looking at the panorama. And that's the worst nightmare of this cult and its other dimensional masters, that humans will, what am I describing? Wake up to what's going on. So you need ways, not just to get people to have rigid belief systems, but to stop them going beyond them. And so getting people into rigid belief systems is exactly what you need to do, because it serves both points. So if you are like believing in a religion, there is a limit to where you will go, because if you do, you're no longer whatever you call yourself. And your parents and your fellow people that believe in the religion, maybe you've almost certainly been brought up among those people, they will start criticizing you and whatever you. And what a religion will say when you start to explore possibility beyond the walls of the religion, they'll say, you are dealing in the occult. You are an occultist going there. Now, what does occult mean? Literally mean, it means hidden. Mm-hmm. So it's hidden knowledge. Now, hidden knowledge about reality, about self, can be used horrifically to control you, or the same knowledge can be used to set us free. The second bit they don't mention. It's the occult, it's the devil. And then you've got the the version of that of orthodox science, which says this is how things are. We've experimented. And we're not going beyond our experiments because we might find something we don't want to find, like we've been wrong all along. So this is how it is.
It's settled.
Yeah.
The science is settled.
Oh, yeah, the great line. The science is settled. Lovely. So when you go beyond that, and you know, many scientists have really courageous people like Rupert Sheldrake and many others who've gone beyond it and have said, actually, maybe there's more to know. Maybe there's more to know. They are ostracized from scientific orthodoxy and by scientific orthodoxy. And what they'll say, orthodoxy, is you're a pseudo-scientist, you're not credible, or you're dealing in the paranormal. And I was fascinated with the way they put para in front of normal. Right. And if I could think of a definition of paranormal, it would be everything science can't explain, right? So scientists here, it can't be happening because I can't explain it. Yeah, but you're in a tiny box, mate. That's why you can't explain it. Open your frickin' mind and I can see how it can work now. So what I'm saying is both the religious mentality in its bricks and mortar expression and in its orthodox science expression, they're both there to limit exploration into the more expansive way of looking at the world, where you can access insight, knowledge, awareness that is not available here. And that little lot has led to how we got here and how 8 billion people can be controlled by a handful who do know what exists here and are using that knowledge to keep us here.
Let's go back to something you said earlier. It reminded me of the quote from the philosopher Nietzsche. It says, I can't believe in a God who wants to be worshipped all the time. It's kind of funny. And I'm a follower of Jesus in the sense of the New Testament. But I wanted to ask you, I had on my notes, and it's in this same vein, because I believe what you're alluding to is that as human beings, with our mind and our subconscious, whether you call that divine or spiritual, we have the ability to manifest a reality, and that they box you in with these beliefs like you're saying about religion. And I was thinking about evangelical Christianity. You wrote about in the Trigger, you talked about how the House of Saud and the modern Israeli government, these are extensions of the Sabbatean Frankist cult, like this inversion. And I find that, because I'm from North Texas, so this is, prime target for, and home to the evangelical Christians with their Christian Zionists. And I believe that we're creating this reality of being inhuman to other human beings, so creating these wars, bringing down old systems and things that were put in place by previous generations for peace dividends, whatever you want to call it. We're destroying all that. It's a destructive process that's going on. And so I wanted to ask you, do you feel that's something I felt gut level, is that the Sabbatean Frankist type mentality or extensions of that is now showing up in modern Christianity?
Yes, they are. But what you mentioned there is interesting, because I've written at length about this, not least in my new book, The Roadmap. What they're trying to keep from us more than anything else, and they know it, and they use it, is that our perceptions become our experienced reality. If they can get us to believe in a perception of reality, they know that through that perception we will create a expression, an experience of that reality. I have this phrase, what you believe you perceive, and what you perceive you experience. And what I'm finding fascinating now is that things like quantum physics are starting to see that this is how it works, in the sense of they talk about the observer. The observer creates reality. So you have a waveform field, and when it's observed, it appears to become a particle. But it's at the same time it's a particle, it's also a wave field. What's going on? And to break it all down in the simplest terms, I mentioned earlier that every time we think we are generating a frequency, every time we feel emotion, we're generating a frequency. Well, the sum total of our perceptions, the way we see the world, consciously and subconsciously, manifests as a field of information. It's a frequency field that encompasses our perception of reality. Now, for me, and I think even more open-minded scientists miss this bit. There are two fields. There's the matrix field, and then there's the infinite field beyond it. If they can control your perception so that your perceptions are resonating within the frequency band of the matrix field, then you're in the world, you're in the matrix, and you are of the matrix because your information is coming from the matrix. They gotcha. But if you expand your awareness beyond the matrix field, you tap into the infinite field. And for me, this infinite field is literally all possibility, all potential waiting to manifest. And it's manifested by perception. That field dictates what infinite possibility it pulls into an experience. And so this cult knows, and this other dimensional force absolutely knows, that if you can control perception, particularly collective perception, where the sum of the parts is, or the totality is greater than the sum of the parts, then you are able to create an entire reality that reflects what you've got the target population to believe is reality. What you believe, you perceive. What you perceive, you experience. And this is the key. And if we can take back our perceptions, then we start creating another reality. Example, if you believe, because the matrix is telling you it all the time, so you stay within its field, that you are little me and you have no power, then you'll live a little me life with no power, and you'll perceive that authority is more powerful than you, and you never go against authority because, they know what they're talking about, and even if they don't know what they're talking about, what are the consequences for going against authority? And you believe what scientists tell you, orthodox scientists tell you, or you believe what religious people will tell you. Because, they must know more than I am because I'm just little me, I am. That's another version of, I'm just little me and there's God up there and he's big me and it's... And so your perception of reality becomes your experience reality. And then you've got other people who are more expanded in their awareness, who realize that they're creating their reality by their perceptions, and they manipulate that to create the reality they want. These people are doing that. These people in the cult. Why are the cultists always so frickin' rich and apparently powerful in their point in the hierarchy? It's because this is part of what the inner level of the cult is educating them on from a young age, that your perception of self interacts with the energetic field of the matrix or beyond, not that they will go beyond, and you can create a reality in which you are rich and powerful. Whereas you want the population to believe the opposite, that they're not rich and powerful. And even the population, you want to worship the rich and powerful. Even more of a little me, big me dynamic. And this is what they don't want you to believe. So the foundation, the entire foundation of the conspiracy is the control of human perception. So that, you know what they say? You'll never change human nature, mate. Well, what is the nature of humans? Why do we have a nature of humans? I say it's because of the body programs software. That's why, and you'll never change human nature. Well, how about we're not human? How about none of us is actually human? We are having a human experience. What we are is consciousness. That's what they don't want us to grasp. Because once you do that, because when I started out in 1990 consciously on this journey of trying to work it out what's going on, the only people in those very early years that would even give me a hearing, and even then at the end of the night in the smallest room in a conference or something, were what was called the New Age. And I used to go to some of these New Age conferences in the early 90s and stuff. And I'd look around and I'd sit and I'd listen, and these kind of spiritual teachers or gurus were talking. And I used to think, well, they make it sound ever so sodding complicated, right? And I don't think it is. And the more that I've gone my own way, the more simple it has become. It's not complicated. What I see, again, not just in the whole so-called spiritual arena, but in the society in general, not least orthodox science, is that if it's not complicated, it can't be true. Now, my view is that genius is not to understand the complex, it's to see the simple hidden by the complex. So you look at these scientists and they've got all these equations on a massive frickin' blackboard. And most people look at that and go, can't be doing with it, mate. Don't understand it, I'll leave them to it. Yeah, but don't leave them to it. Just realize that that is a complexity that is not necessary. It's much simpler. And so when people say, so how do I wake up? For me, it's as simple as the transformation of your self-identity. Because perception becomes reality, your self-identity as a human, your self-identity as Ethel on the checkout or Bill on the bus, means that you are, your attention, your perception is held in actually a tiny field of possibility. And so you're interacting with all possibility within that tiny area of interaction. So what are you going to create from that interaction? You're going to create an expression of your perceptions. You're going to have a little me life, and I've got no power, and I'm just trying to get to the end of the month and all that stuff. And you're going to stay within the matrix field because you're operating within its frequency walls. All it takes is a transformation of self-identity from I am human and little me to I am consciousness, ultimately an expression of all consciousness, having a brief experience called human. And what happens then is that expansion of self-identity expands your awareness deeper and deeper and deeper into the field until you go beyond the limits of the matrix and you start tapping into the infinite realm beyond it. At which point you look around and the world looks completely different because you're now tapping in to that which can give you the panorama of what's happening rather than the myopia. And all it takes is a redefinition of your self-identity. Who am I? And that's why, going back to what I said earlier, they either want you to believe in, I'm a cosmic accident who came out the primordial soup, or I'm subject to the diktats of a judgmental God, because both of those perceptions will keep you in the matrix in terms of your frequency, your perceptual frequency. Once you start to expand your awareness into the infinite realm, the world completely changes because your level of awareness changes. Now, what is religions constantly telling you? You can't say you're an expression of God. That's blasphemy. You can't do that. You can't say that. Why do you not want me to identify myself as an expression of the infinite? Why? Well, the why is that you've just been programmed to believe that's the case, and you're now telling me I must believe the program as well. But ultimately, that which has created the religion structure, and they're all the bloody same, really, is trying to stop you realizing, remembering, we are an expression of this infinite awareness, this infinite whole. And ultimately, if we go on expanding, we become the infinite whole, ultimately. And but you can't say that because it's blasphemy. And you can't say that to an orthodox scientist because it's pseudoscience, right? So you see how the same way that that the manipulation of perception works, they may call it, have a different name on the door, but it's the same manipulation.
To keep you separated.
Yeah, separated. That's the word. That is the word. You must think that you are separate from everything else when we are an expression of everything else. Now, what are the five senses doing? The five senses are how we're worth mentioning this in terms of, maybe I have it, but mentioning this in terms of how we interact with the matrix. We interact through the five senses. We interact with the field through the five senses. And this is mainstream science now. The five senses work by tapping into frequency information. That's the Wi-Fi field of the matrix, frequency information. The senses turn that into electrical information and communicate it to the brain. And there's different parts of the brain that decode the different senses. The visual decoding is done around the back here. And then the brain puts together a perception of reality from that input. So what the brain puts together as a result of the information coming through the five senses from the matrix field is one in which everything is separated from everything else. It's delivering I am separated from you, but I'm not in terms of consciousness. In fact, do you see that Princeton study? It actually came out in August 2025, but it's been circulating on the internet in the last couple of weeks or so, where they found that there are ultra-low frequencies, loosh, ultra-low frequencies that are connecting every human brain.
The collective unconscious.
Collective unconscious, exactly. 100th monkey syndrome, all this is explained by all this stuff. So what you have is And the ears are a wonderful example. We pick up frequency information like sound waves because we're talking here, but there's no words passing between us. What's passing between us is a vibrational field generated by my vocal cords. It's picked up by the ears as frequency. It's turned into electrical information and communicated to the brain, and the brain then decodes it into what we call words, language. And the more languages you learn, then your brain can decode it into it decodes different languages. And so all the senses work like that. And this is the kicker, really, which people find, what? What's happening is this information from frequency to electrical is decoded by the brain into a holographic reality that we experience as physical, but actually is not physical. Quantum physics has clearly shown that. You've only got to look on the inside of an atom to see that as well. It's empty space, as we call it. It's not physical or solid at all. So what that means is that this world that we experience as external to us is all in here. It's all in here. And is that fantastic when you look at a desktop computer? Where does it decode the internet? It decodes it inside the computer. We only see a visual representation of it on the screen, but even the screen and what's on the screen is inside the computer. And it's exactly the same principle, because what they're doing, like I said earlier, they're mimicking reality technologically and calling it like, we've just discovered this. Well, no. At the cult level, you bloody well knew all along, And this is why when people like Elon Musk speculate, long after I did, by the way, that this could be a matrix. It could be a matrix. It could be a simulation. He frickin' knows it is. He knows it is. It is kind of, I know he's a gopher, but at his level of on the inside, he will know it's a matrix. All these people do.
Your experience that you had, was it Peru that you
Peru, yeah.
Yeah, that you had the Kundalini experience, and that's been decades of changing your perception and honing that. And now we're in 2026. I noticed over the last couple of years you started referring to the mainstream media as ma'am, or the mainstream alternative media.
Yeah.
So much of it has been captured, and I agree with you. So this is pretty much the final question, and I have a couple of bonus ending questions. But if you were looking at the landscape of alternative media, what it's become, where it's going, now you're one of the last of this. You write, this amazing volume of work. You've got decades worth of work. There used to be people like Jim Mars that were around. My friend Donald.
I met Jim. Great lad. Great fella.
I didn't have the pleasure, but I've read so many of his books. My friend Donald Jeffries, who wrote Hidden History, who's a fan of yours. And but those days are passing away. There's fewer and fewer people that are like the general knowledge and really studying and doing the references. There's so much clickbait and the political capture of that. So if you were starting out today, if you're 25, how would you go about, let's say, in alternative media or in life in general? What would you do things? Obviously, it's a different world. It's going to require different tools. What would you do different?
I don't think I'd do anything different because, I've always worked on the principle. I said this earlier in the chat. That's attributed to a quote by Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher, who said, "To know is to know you know nothing." That is the meaning of true knowledge. Wisdom is knowing how little we know, in other words. So at any point that you think you've got it, at best you've got that level of it. But you ain't got it. None of us have got it because we're constantly in the process of trying to get it and get more. And so never stop and think, I got it now. That's the death knell. And you talk about this MAM, this alternative, mainstream alternative media, as I call it. I noticed after COVID, immediately after COVID, that people were coming into the alternative media out of the mainstream and were algorithmically supported, shall we say, to take it over and become the focal points. And I looked at these people, a lot of these people, most of these people. I looked at Tucker Carlson. I used to watch on Fox because he was further ahead than other Fox presenters. And first of all, he's has a rigid religious belief, which means he's there. At some level, he's there. But also, he was a Trump supporter. He still is, he says, on the quiet, apart from the Iran war, right up to the 2024 election. He was doing massive public events with people like Alex Jones and Donald Trump Jr. and Russell Brand, right up to the election to push Trump. And then I look at Candace Owens, who started off as a progressive, as they call them, who was lambasting Trump and ridiculing Trump in 2015, 2016, tried to start a doxing website, got a lot of pushback from the progressive arena where she was in, and in her words, became a conservative overnight, and started from that moment pushing Trump. She suddenly jumped from progressive to Trump supporter, and suddenly she's being put on Fox News to give her views on conservatism and Trump, and she's on Tucker Carlson's show and all these people. And she went on promoting Trump. Then in 2018, she attended the ceremony under Trump to move the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and posted something on the internet lambasting the fact that there was no elected Democrat there. We will not forget. Marries into a Zionist family where the father-in-law is Michael Farmer, who is the vice chairman of a real Christianity Zionist organization, which has the King of England as its patron. And after entering that family, where she agreed to marry George Farmer, the son, after 17 days or so, over Zoom after they first met, she starts lambasting Israel. And it's like, what? And what Carlson and Owens have become is the go-to people on Israel. I watched a guy called Brett Weinstein, who's often on Tucker Carlson and often on Joe Rogan. Neither Carlson or Rogan will talk to me at any price. And I watched him during COVID when he did an interview in which he was describing how he wore a red bandana around his neck while the COVID restrictions were on, so that if anyone knocked his door, he could quickly put up the mask before he answered the door. He described how when he went out, he used to put particular glasses on and gloves. I got a job lot from Amazon, he said, right, his gloves. He would go out, get food or whatever. When he came back, all his clothes would immediately go into the wash. And he described how, he was making it difficult for the virus because it had to get in here, around his glasses, into his eyes, like. And I'm watching this, well, actually quite incredulous watching it, which is fair enough. Okay, people buy that. That's that. Okay, they buy it. All right, they buy it. But then he becomes the go-to guy on COVID. After he started talking about the alternative media, and I saw Carlson at one point, certainly for a while, was buying the COVID story. I see that it's how the alternative media, in terms of its algorithmic support, it's another thing in a second. Ian Carroll, a mate of Candace Owens, is another one that I've seen and, shall we say, I'm very suspicious of. But they came in and yet they were the ones that got, in terms of Weinstein and others, the COVID thing wrong. They all massively got Trump wrong. Now they're going, we never thought we'd voted for this. Well, you did. I was telling you since 2016, you did vote for this. And they've taken it over. And why have they taken it over? Because all the attention is focused upon them and the algorithmic support is focused upon them. On X, I've got more than 820,000 people follow my page. The number of people that see my posts, unless they go to the page, is absolutely tiny. Every now and again, I'll see a post that's gone, quote, viral, and just out of interest, I'll go to their page to see how many followers they got. And it's a fraction of the people that follow my page, but they get really big numbers. I get, by comparison, very tiny numbers, even though I have 820,000 people following the page. Now, someone was pointing out this the other day, I saw in a video. How come these people I'm describing get phenomenal numbers, therefore algorithmically supported, for saying the same things that others say and get shadow banned or banned altogether for?
Long before.
What? It makes no sense. And I do think, and this might be controversial, I don't care. I do think that, let's say that I think there's more to know about this whole takeover of the alternative media in terms of what's actually behind it. For this reason, I call them the Barricade Brigade because they're holding the line. They very rarely, if ever, talk about AI human fusion, for a start. But what's happened is, okay, you're this cult, and you look at what's happened during COVID. Now, COVID is very important to you to advance your agenda, and actually to see how much control you have. I mean, how many people are going to put little masks on and walk to their table in a cafe, take their mask off, eat their food, put their mask on to go to the toilet, come back, take their mask off, go and then go to the door and take their mask off in the street? How many are going to do that? Oh, they won't do that. Oh, they will. I watched them do it. So it's important as a psychological test as well. But I would look at that and, like, when COVID started in England, the COVID restrictions, a few people were protesting and going against the restrictions, and the police were picking them off. By the time the restrictions were taken away, I was walking through the streets of London with in excess of 100,000 people protesting. We probably disagree on many, many things, but together, focused, protesting about these things. The police were now standing on the side of the road watching us go past. They had no power. There is a message in that. If we put down the fault lines of divide and rule and belief systems and just focused on what we're all being targeted by, it would come down overnight. Anyway, so I looked at that. And if you were the cult, you'd say, okay, COVID was very good for us, gentlemen, but a few people have now woken up, haven't they? They kind of see that there is some kind of conspiracy going on. Yeah, so what do we do about that then? Oh, over here. Well, we can't put the genie totally back in the bottle. But what we can do is we can stop it going any further, gentlemen. Okay, so what do we have to do? Okay, well, where are these people getting their information from that's waking them up? Well, they're not getting it from the mainstream media, which we own, because they have total contempt for the mainstream media. They don't believe it. Okay, so we can't control them through that then. So where are they getting their information from? Oh, well, they're getting it from this new alternative media. All right. Well, we need some of our people in there to take it over and stop it going any further. And I should make the point, the people put in there don't, or are promoted, don't even have to know that's the case. They just have to think that all you have to do is pick people that have a limited perception of the conspiracy and algorithm the hell out of them. And then they'll hold the line. Not because they know, oh, I'm following my masters, they told me to hold the line, I'm going to hold the line. No, they hold the line because they think that's where the bloody line is, right? But there are people, I am absolutely sure, have been put in there knowingly what they're doing. But anyway, but you don't have to. So what they've done is they've focused attention on the conspiracy around Trump, around Harris, Biden, Democrats and Republicans, Labor and Conservative and Reform with Farage and all that stuff. And they've held the line. This is the conspiracy. Look. And what it's a version of what I was talking about earlier. Don't explore beyond the norm. Hold it in the norm. Hold it in the five senses. It's Israel. That's the thing. Well, yeah. But the next question, what's the next question? I don't know. There isn't a next question. It's Israel. No. Tell you what the next question is, mate. Who controls frickin' Israel? Right? And then who controls them? They're the questions, but they don't get asked. And then, what I've found, you're probably the same, is that those people who I respect, I may not think they go far enough, but who I respect are genuinely seeking the truth. They're invariably the ones that get shadow banned. And the ones that are holding the line do not. And I don't think that's an accident.
I don't think you're wrong about that. And I've been in, radio and conservative media, which is most of it is a complete controlled arm of Israel at this point. You're talking about right-wing conservatism, whatever that means anymore in the United States. And I've been in alternative media, and I agree with you, and in large part. And I try to be as objective as I can. If someone is speaking the truth, I'm going to support them. If someone is clearly repeating something they were told to do or following some sort of narrative plan, then I'll oppose them. And I try to do that as much as I can. And it can get very confusing. I appreciate everything that you've done, and it means a lot to me that we sat down and had this talk. I've enjoyed it very much. But I wanted to end with one thing, and I'm curious about it. You had that experience 1990 in Peru.
Yeah.
I believe Peru was the
91. Yeah.
91. And Peru historically was the home to the Inca, right? Is that correct? Am I right?
Yes, right.
And I in the precious metals business, and I want to get your unvarnished opinion on this because I read histories on gold and histories on metals and coins and things like that. And I was talking to Gareth, and we got into human beings and what is it about precious metals. And the Incas believed that gold was the sweat of the sun, and that silver was the tears of the moon. Like it was something divine to them. Same thing with the Persians. It was divinity, not money. But there's something invariably connecting human history with precious metals, especially gold. And again, unvarnished, what is David Icke's opinion, or what is gold to humanity?
Well, I think these metals are frequencies. And in terms of gold, the obsession with gold over the years indicates to me that it is a particularly important frequency. For instance, if you are stockpiling gold in a particular place, well, you've got a massive frequency of gold that's given off. And I don't know if you saw, it was a CIA document that came to light recently, where they were talking about the human body being crystalline and being like a liquid crystal. Now, I've been writing that for probably 25 years. And everything is about frequency in this reality. That's why crystals are so important. You talk about crystal healing. Well, crystal healing, if you do it right, can provide a frequency you might be missing or whatever. And I think gold is a very, very powerful frequency, which they will use to their own benefit. And I think silver's a very powerful frequency as well. But all these precious metals, they give off a frequency. And these people and the inner core will know what that frequency is and what it does.
That's an answer I was thinking you might say. It has something to do with frequency.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it attracts itself in some way, because they do, especially the cult class, and they played this trick with us with fake money, with fiat currency, as you know. You've written about extensively. It's almost like a harvesting that they do, and of course fiat currency is an accelerant for this reality we have now. I mean, just made it worse. I mean, you have the wars of choice and deep state and all the rest of that. The corruption is off the charts because of that, and the normal people, average people, don't know that there is some, and I don't lust after them. I don't seek precious metals. I'm interested in them, but they don't have a hold on me. I think they can, to some people, create some sort of overwhelming magnetism. It doesn't do that to me, but it is interesting.
I tell you a concept I wrote about a long time ago, which I had. I'm talking about vampiring the energy of humans, right? And one of the themes of this consciousness, this fake God consciousness and its entities that express its consciousness, is that it has an inability to create. It has a lack of imagination, but can replicate what has already been created. It's like the old stories of the Hong Kong gangs that replicated technology, etc., and things, and then sold them back to the West. I think there was a there was one place that was actually renamed USA so they could say "Made in USA"
Right.
on it. Yeah, and it has the ability, and I think because of its schismatic nature, it doesn't have this creative imagination. So it uses human imagination. It uses human consciousness imagination to as a middle man and woman for its creation. And when you look at these people that dominate this cult, they basically don't create anything. Right. They don't create anything. They get humans to create it, and then they take the money. And what is money? I met a guy once, years and years ago, who said, "I talk to money." I said, "What do you mean you talk to money?" He said, "Well, money's an energy. I just talk to it. You know, I tell it I want it to come to me." And what I was saying in this book some years ago is that what they've done is they've created like an energetic system of flow in which the energy, and it is an energy of money, is flowing into them. And so if you are someone who has a creative imagination and you want to, and you create something and people want it, well, if you're going to expand it and turn it into a company that sells things, sells what you've created, what do? You've almost certainly not got the money, so you go to a bank. And the bank lends you money that has never, does not, and will never exist, just another form of electronic energy, figures on a screen. And as a result of that, it is feeding off your creativity. Because now you've got to pay back what you've actually not borrowed, only in theory, credit. And so they're now feeding off your creativity. And if by some circumstances your business goes bankrupt, well, they get your business in response to the money they have theoretically lent you. And so they now own your creativity. And this is going on all the time. Yes. You know, the banks are the ultimate organized crime, but it's deeper than that. This is why, if you can pass on the nature of reality to the inner core of the cult, generation after generation, and create the systems of communication that the public have, and you make sure that they are as ignorant as possible, and these are as aware as possible, then you set up these systems which the population in general would go, "That Icke's bloody mad. Have you heard what he's just said about money?" Right? And they're actually doing it. And they've set up this flow of, and when we talk about loosh, loosh or money to these people is loosh. It's a form of energy vampiring.
Yeah, and the higher up, that's my studies, if the higher up the pyramid you go, the less creative you'll find those people.
Yes.
And then down the spec, like the entrepreneurial spirit, the creative wants to make something. It's less about the money, but they can capture you if you allow it. They can certainly, and the loans and what you need and the leverage to get there. And they own that, and then that's your creativity that grows theirs, and so or grows
Absolutely.
their wealth. Yes.
See, when people have said to me over the years, "It's the money. It's all about money." It's not. It's not. No, money is they've got so much quote money they'd have to reincarnate 1,000 times to spend it all. Mm-hmm. Money is a vehicle for control. It's a vehicle. Now, some people will get up in the morning, obviously, and they want to make more money, even though they've got no way they're going to spend it in that lifetime. They want to make more money by the time the sun goes down. Of course, there is that mentality. But if you go in here, Money's just a means of control.
It's just control, and it's the energy harvest. It's a completely different spectrum
Exactly.
than what the perception is of the love of money is the root of all evil. It's mostly true, but except there's that caveat to what is it being loved for.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Make sure my audience knows where they can find you, David, and where you want to be found. I know davidicke.com. I go there all the time, check out your articles, and we're in Iconic Studios.
Yeah, davidicke.com is where they can get the books. They get books elsewhere, but that's the place that they can get them. And in America, North America, the books are sent from North America, so you don't have to wait for them to come from England. It will be there within 24, 48 hours. And then iconic.com, this is just, I think it's just a fantastic platform, and I don't take credit for it. Others have created it, but I think it's a fantastic platform, and it covers this whole range, like very few do, this whole range from the nature of reality. I've done many documentaries on it for them, and right across to the daily, this is what's happening today, and actually this is what they're not telling you about what's happening today. So it's a vast spectrum that we cover, and I think it's a great platform.
I do too, and I've been following it for years. I've had known people here on this platform, and you have some great content, and I appreciate all your books and everything that you've done. I've been following you for many years. This is a great honor to be able to sit down and do this, and thank you to Gareth and to Jamie for having me.
Yeah, bro.
Appreciate
really
it.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. All right, davidicke.com, folks, iconic.com. Get the books, become a subscriber. Thanks again.